The coronavirus fears continue to move stocks towards the worst weeks since the financial crisis. What's the key navigating this sell-off? Joining me now is the legendary American investor and financial commentator Jim Rogers from Singapore. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm delighted to see you again, Manuel. Hello.
Jim, what are your thoughts on the coronavirus? How did your life change?
Well, my life changed because, first of all, I cannot leave Singapore if I want to. Of course, the airports are closed and the airlines are closed and many countries are closed. I couldn't go to China if I wanted to, or Korea, my life has changed a lot. I used to travel a lot and now I'm home. Nothing wrong with being at home. I'm quite delighted, but it certainly changed. And I don't go out very much because it's very hard to go out now. So lots have changed.
I saw an interview with you just a few weeks ago. It was in New York City, and now also New York City is on quarantine. What do you think about this? Such a lively city. You lived for a long time in New York. You live now in Singapore. Our lives dramatically changed.
Well, yes, but one of the things, it's a bit of a shock, Manuel, to find out how little America prepared for this. You know, in China, they didn't know it was coming, so of course they were not prepared. But they seem to have, and Korea and other places, Singapore, Taiwan, seem to have done a much, much, much better job of dealing with them. America had 3 months' notice it was coming. Everybody in the world knew it was happening. America did nothing. Last week, you couldn't even get a test. I don't know if you still can get a test. There were only 1 million tests in the whole country, a country of 325 million people. So it's a bit of a shock to find that America did nothing, and now it's a disaster.
Yeah, it's also a little disaster for the stock markets around the world. They sold off. Were the markets overbought before, and did you lose money personally?
There's no question that markets were overbought before. You know, Manuel, it's been over 10 years since America had a bear market. That's the longest in American history. I mean, it doesn't have to end, but it could have gone on 20 years, 30 years, but it always has ended after 4 or 8 or 9 years in the past, except this time. It was very overextended. The 3 months before the top hit, markets went straight up. Governments were printing lots of money, huge amounts of money, spending lots of money. Stocks were very expensive. So, of course, it was time. There's always something when a market gets too high to make it go down. In this case, it was partially the virus, which came and surprised. I don't know why it surprised so many people, because it was all over the press for a month or two. But it certainly made the markets help make the markets go down.
Are your investments affected as well?
Oh, no, of course, everybody. If you're long anything, you've suffered in the past 2 or 3 months. Everything has gone down, and everything has gone down in a very dramatic, quick fashion. My shorts didn't go down; my shorts went up. But I don't have nearly as many shorts now as I have sometimes in the past.
What should, like the average investor at home who has stocks, who owns stocks, what should they do to maybe protect their money?
First of all, they shouldn't listen to me. They shouldn't listen to anybody on the internet or the TV. They should only invest in what they know about. I can tell you what I'm doing, but you should not do it because you saw some guy on the internet. The people who are successful investors, Manuel, are the people who only invest in what they themselves know a lot about. If you start listening to hot tips and the internet and the TV, you're going to lose money. So nobody wants to hear it. Everybody wants a hot tip. But I'm telling you, if you could only have 20 investments in your life, you would be very careful. You wouldn't be jumping in and out of something you read in Wirtschaft, or even inside Wirtschaft. You would be very careful. And if you ask me what to do, that's what you should do. You want a hot tip? I don't have a hot tip.
I think there is another problem. The total worldwide debt has never been higher. Now, with the coronavirus outbreak been declared as a pandemic, governments have announced hundreds of billions of dollars in stimulus packages that will send debt even higher. How worried should we be if all comes crashing down?
Well, you're young. You should be very worried because, you know, America, it's staggering. America is already the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. And Trump and the Congress have gone out and spent over $2 trillion more and printed hundreds of billions more. I mean, sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. And this is one of those times. Yes, it may make things better for a few months, but they don't care about a few years. All they care about is the election and a few months. But the rest of us, at least I do, and certainly for my children, this is going to be terrible.
Are the central banks not independent anymore? Are they just like doing what presidents and leaders tell them?
They all claim to be, but the Bank of Japan, every day he goes to work and says, yes, 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 I'll print more money and buy more shares. You know, even in the U.S. now, the quote, independent central bank is, I don't know, I cannot think of a single central bank now that is completely independent. I'll try to think of that, but I cannot think of any left.
But what could be the alternative? If the Fed or the ECB wouldn't do anything, the economy would be worse.
Yes, we've had bear markets since the beginning of time. Nobody likes to live through a bear market, but a bear market cleans out excesses in an economy, and then you can start over from a sounder base. If you have a forest fires are terrible if you're in the forest fire, but the forest fire is good for the forest. It cleans out dead wood, it cleans out undergrowth, and then the forest can grow sounder and even better. That's what bear markets do. I'm not saying I like bear markets. Nobody likes bear markets. But the facts are it's not the end of the world. We've been having them for centuries, and we will have them for more centuries.
What will this do to our currencies? Will the euro or the dollar still exist in a few years?
Not as we know them now, certainly not the euro. There are already there are many critics and people who attack the euro. Europe needs something like the euro. It just needs it on a sound basis. And so far, they've not been very sound with the construction of the euro. The US dollar is certainly going to lose its status as the world's reserve currency, not this week, but you know, it looks like in my view, the US dollar will go much higher, probably turn into get overpriced, maybe turn into a bubble, because in times of turmoil, everybody looks for a safe haven. They think the US dollar is a safe haven. It's not. America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, but people think it's a safe haven, so it's probably going to get overvalued, might turn into a bubble. I hope I'm smart enough to sell it.
Are you more optimistic for this year, so for some gold?
Well, I do own some gold. I happen to have a little silver right here. I own gold and silver. I didn't buy any more gold and silver for a few years, but last summer I started buying again, and I bought more recently. Bought more last week, in fact.
There are some voices here in Germany saying the gold will go up in the next years, going up to 3,000, even 4,000, 5,000. Do you think this is possible?
Anything's possible. Yes, of course, anything's possible. But I don't listen to hot tips. Remember, I told you don't listen to hot tips. I will say that before this is over, gold is certainly going to go that high. You know, whenever people lose confidence in governments and money, they always buy gold and silver. Many people say you shouldn't. Academics and politicians and bureaucrats say don't. I don't care. All of us peasants know that gold and silver have been good for millions of years and will be. So I'm buying it, and it's certainly going to go much, much higher before this is over.
So I have another thing here for you. What is your opinion on Bitcoin?
That will go to zero. All of those cyber currencies will disappear before it's over. As you may remember, 100 years ago, people could use anything they wanted for money. Banks could print their own money legally. They used seashells, gold, silver, whatever they wanted. But then in the 1930s, the Bank of England, which was the most important bank in the world then, said, from now on, it's an act of treason to use anything for money except our money. Well, Manuel, treason means they execute you. So people stopped using other things for money. And that's what's going to happen to all of this as well someday, if it works. Now, you know, the cryptocurrency people say, we're smarter than the government. And they are smarter than the government. But the government has the guns. And when the government says it's treason to use it, people will stop using it. So they're all going to disappear. Many of them already have disappeared, as you know. Many have already gone to zero. They will all go to zero in the end.
Some of these coins were fraud, a lot of them, but you think even the Bitcoin will disappear?
I don't think I know. Maybe I was not clear. I said, especially if they're successful, governments do not like losing their power and their control. I don't like that the governments have control. I wish we could use anything we wanted for money, but I know who has the guns.
I mean, we see this also, like Facebook planned their own currency, digital currency, and they had a lot of problems and they stepped back at the moment, so we don't hear much. I think this is, yeah, what you're saying.
Well, Manuel, yeah, money is going to be on the computer and on the internet. There's no question about that. If you go to China now, it's hard to use money. You cannot buy an ice cream. You cannot take a taxi if you have money. It's already on the computer in China. So yes, all of our money is going to be on the computer, but it's not. It's going to be government money. It's not going to be the money you and I would like. As I say, I don't like this. Governments love it. They know everything you do now. They will call you up one day and say, Manuel, you drank too much beer last month. You've got to change your life. They'll know everything you do in the future. And they love that. I don't, but they love it.
Let's talk about stocks. Which companies would you buy at the moment? Airlines, hotels, these companies who are like really beaten at the moment?
Well, obviously, see, you should listen to Wirtschaft, Inside Wirtschaft. These are where the opportunities are developing. Certainly, yes, not all. One airline is already closed, so you have to be careful. You can't just buy blind. But shipping, transport, airlines, hotels, tourism, all of these things have been decimated. So there are many opportunities developing.
Let's talk about politics for a second again. The US really have a huge problem at the moment. Donald Trump for a long time said we won't have a big problem. Now the US has a huge problem. Do you think this could like cost his re-election this year?
Well, it could, but it's very difficult to defeat a sitting president. If you look at American history, it's very difficult. You know, if a president needs votes in this state over here, he spends a lot of money over there. The opposition cannot do that. So it's always difficult to get rid of a president in the White House. It has been done and it can be done. And if he continues to make mistakes and it gets worse, yes, there's a possibility.
Your daughter.
I wouldn't bet against it yet, though. I would not have bet against, and I don't bet. But if I were betting, I would not bet against Trump, not now.
I saw a video. Your daughters appeared on Chinese TV show. They surprised the audience by singing in fluent Chinese. Are your daughters your best investment?
So far, I hope they can take care of me someday. It's certainly been the best success I've ever had.
What are your future goals? What do you hope that we get through this very fast? What do you think?
Well, I don't think we're going to get through it very fast. The governments are doing everything they can and spending a lot of money, and that's going to certainly cause a big rally. But it's not enough because, as I said before, the debt is staggering now. 2008, we had a problem because of too much debt. Well, since then, Manuel, the debt has skyrocketed all over the world. And this month alone, the debt has skyrocketed even more. So no, this is going to get worse. In the end, it will have a huge rally first, but in the end, this is not over. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be the worst in my lifetime. And I'm older than you, so it's going to be the worst in your lifetime.
Just a few years, but what do you think? How many years do we need to recover?
I'm not smart enough to know that yet. You should watch Inside Wirtschaft. They know. It partly depends on the politicians, the mistakes they make. So far, they're making mistake after mistake. So right now, I know it's going to get worse before it gets over.
Are you on quarantine as well? Are you afraid of the virus?
Well, I don't want to get the virus. Nobody wants to get sick. You know, we all take our temperature around here 3 or 4 times a day. We wash our hands. We don't go out. We do the things that we're supposed to do. So, yeah, I don't want to get the virus. I don't want to get any sickness.
In Asia, the situation is getting better, right?
Well, from what I read, yes, the Asian countries seem to have done a much, much, much better job of getting it under control, even though they didn't have much. It was a surprise for everybody in Asia. But if you look at Korea and Taiwan and Singapore and China, they all. Now, I don't know if you can believe the numbers, cannot believe any government most of the time, but they seem to have done a much better job.
Jim, thank you so much for the interview. I wish you all the best.
My pleasure, Manuel. Let's do it again sometimes.
Stay safe and healthy, and all the best for you.
Wash your hands.
Bye-bye, Jim.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.